In this video, we're going to be installing 538 Rubicon. They're sitting right over there on the table. That's what I was looking at. I got Dana 44 front and rear. They're trussed with R-type trusses. Still running the stock axle shafts. And if I can stay off the go pedal, I think they'll last pretty good. You know, right now it's still got the 410s in it. It's the manual, so it does okay in the range, but we really want to crawl. So we're going to switch over to 533s, 538s. We're going to switch over to 538s. Yeah. Then we'll really be crawling. In this video, we're going to go over step by step and all the tools that I believe are required to change your gear ratio. We're going to start with some safety gear. We're going to go ahead and chalk the wheels back here because we don't want it to go anywhere. Alright, first things first, let's get the air impactor all nice and lubed up because lube tools are happy tools. Afterwards, we'll grab our adapter for our tiny lugs. Air tools are not required, but it'll make this job so much easier and quicker. Of course, you want a big, nice floor jack so we can get the axle up off of the ground, have lots of room to work with. And I got these Harbor Freight, what are they, 6-ton jack stands, just to keep everything up and for safety. All right, let's go ahead and get this Jeep lifted off the ground real quick. I find if you go right next to the pumpkin on the front one, it lifts it pretty good. I run my jack as high as it'll go, and then I put my jack stands on the frame side of the control arms. That way my axle will droop and give me the most room to work under the vehicle comfortably. All right, let's go ahead and get this jack stand slid under the vehicle. Switch around to the other side and get that one taken care of real quick. All right, next step is to get these 120-pound tires removed, which is always a workout. Helps if you go the right way with the tools. Put your lug nuts somewhere where you won't lose them. Mine just happens to be on this side next to the post. And then very carefully remove this tire without breaking your toes. All right, we'll go ahead and do the same for the other side. Let's carefully lower the vehicle down onto the jack stands. Check the placement before you let all the weight down on those jack stands. I don't like it, so I'm going to raise it back up and move my jack stands back just a little bit more. Let's try again. All right, I'm happy with that, so let's go ahead and get this jack out of the way. Yeah, that one moved over a little bit, but we're still good. That one's golden too. I like to be a little paranoid, so I'm going to take these smaller jacks and stick them on their axle, just in case. This way, if it comes off the big jack stands, this will keep it from falling all the way down to the ground. All right, come over here with your 3/8. We're going to take out the fill plug first to be sure we can get oil back inside of here after we have removed everything that's inside. Have one of your oil change catch cans underneath. And then we have a plug here. Mine's pretty much done for. And we have one in the back. If yours is anything like mine, it's going to be full of mud. So get your awl, get a screwdriver, just get something down here to get it cleaned out. And it looks like I'm going to need an extension. I recommend gloves. You can get these off Amazon for fairly cheap for like a 100 pack. I'll share a link so you guys can find them easily. You don't want to get this oil on your hands. If you get it on your hands over time, it just stains them. It makes it really hard to keep your hands clean. My last trip out, I was playing in the mud. This diff fluid has only been in there for 2 or 3 trips out in the mud and water. As you can see, my gasket wasn't quite tight enough, so I think I was leaking through here. I was dripping for a little bit, but that's fine because we're changing the fluid right now anyways. Get that cover off. I'm going to use my air impact, but you could always use hand tools if that's what you have on hand. I left this one here loose so it wouldn't drop and crush my fingers. And I'll remove that last one by hand. I have aftermarket covers, so I have reusable gaskets. I will clean it up in a few minutes. All right, it's time to get the calipers out of the way. Have a bungee cord, 1/2-inch ratchet, size 21 socket, and a pipe. And your bungee cord. And just try to find a place to get it out of the way. Doesn't matter if your brake pads fall out. You can put those back in later. You just don't want it hanging off that brake line there. Now that we got that brake caliper out of the way, we can also get the rotor. It should come right off, and just set it to the side. Next, we need to get off this unit bearing so we can slide the axles out. Get the unit bearings off. You have 3 bolts. Right here's one. Down there's one. And there's also one at the very top. Takes a size 13 with the star pattern inside of it. All right, with the key in the ignition, we can move the steering so we can have access to those bolts a little easier. Turn the hub so you can get better access to that bolt. And try to find the right combination of extensions to use to get back there. All right, now I just gotta get down and get this last one out down here. Straighten that back out again. Watch your finger. And give this just a little tug. And we're free. I'm gonna snip my holders. They're just zip ties that hold my ABS cable on. That way I can get a little bit more slack in the line without pressure being on the wire itself. Your setup may be a little bit different. All right, I'm gonna just leave that axle hanging down like that. We don't have any pressure on the lines. I don't have the original bracket there anymore, but you may. Just make sure to relieve that pressure. If you have the centerpiece here, you can just unclip your wire from it and let it hang down. You can see I have oil on mine. My inner seals have been blown for a while. I tried to put these outer seals on to slow down the leak, and they helped a little bit, but not that big of a deal because we're going to be changing the inner seals when we do the regearing anyways. Alright, so the tie rod does need to come out of the way. So, pretty simple. You got a cotter pin here that needs to come out. Pull it out, put it somewhere safe, you can reuse it. It is a 15/16. And we'll go ahead and buzz that off real quick. Not all the way, but so we'll get it up almost all the way off. Alright, with that bolt still on, but higher than your threads, I'm going to use a big hammer. And there we go, it popped down. I just didn't want it falling on the ground, so that kind of caught it for us. Pop this guy out. So now I'm going to work on getting the ring and pinion out of the axle. This driver's side is pretty tight. I think if I get a screwdriver in there, I can move over the locker just a tiny bit to get my socket in there. But it's a really, really precise fit. And just like that, came out super easy. I labeled bags, driver and passenger, because I figured if I went left and right, depends on what angle you're looking at the vehicle. So driver side and passenger side works better for me. Don't lose this little bracket. This bracket is what lines up your locker in the right spot. And here's the passenger side bag. There's shims, and we want to make sure those shims go on the proper side they came out of. That'll give us a good starting point when we start measuring and test fitting to put things back in. Alright, up on top, disconnect my axle locker. Try to keep track of what shims are on what side and bring it out. And it's a bit heavy. We can take a look. My inner seals are pretty much totaled from when I pulled out the axles to do my truss kit. Try to keep everything separated from driver's side and passenger side. This is our driver's side shim. That's going to be our starting foot when we put it back together. And here's our passenger side. And our passenger side shim. Alright, next with the size 15, we can go ahead and get this front drive shaft out of the way. Just held on by 4 bolts with the transfer case in neutral. Should be able to get something in here and rotate that drive shaft so you can access all the bolts. Come to find out, I end up having a bad U-joint, and you guys probably won't have this much of an issue rotating your drive shaft around. Alright, come around the front with a punch and use the holes that are not your bolt holes, and you should be able to knock the drive line out. I'm back. Got a punch. Let's give this another shot. Alright, broke it loose enough. We should be able to get an upright bar in here now. Alright, this guy's really not cooperating. We're going to try a different way. There you go. Just that easy. Alright, with a 1 inch and 1/8 socket, let's see if we can get this pinion to break loose. There we go. she's loose. And lucky me, it needs a new U-joint. So, if you like what you're seeing, come back for the next video on how to replace a U-joint in your drive shaft. Alright, let's finish unscrewing this pinion and pop it on out. Alright, let's get the puller out and see if we can get the flange off. Alright, got the puller set up, I believe. Let's go ahead and get one. Oh, and it came off. Alright, let's give this another shot. See if we can get this pinion separated. Alright, the pressure's back on. We're getting closer. Just working this a little bit at a time. Got to punch in it so it won't rotate on me. Well, that was exciting. Ha! Alright. We're back. Let's see if this pinion pops out like it should. Oh, yeah. And there it goes. Alright, next I'm going to use the bearing puller. I want to take this bearing off of the old 410 pinion. That way I can use it to shave the center out of the bearing just a little bit so it will slide on the new pinion without getting locked on. Alright, let's slide this around and get it lined up, and don't fit. Well, I may not have the proper tool for the job, but let's see if we can make it work. I'm gonna use the hammer and see if I can pop it loose. Alright, a little bit of hammering. It started it off. We can get the bolts started now. Well, I ended up making this monster, put a couple adapters together, and now let's finish getting that bearing off. There we go. It's off. So, after pulling the bearing off, I see I have one shim. And that's going to be my starting point when I put it back together. Look at the size difference. This one is the 410 that came out. This is the stock ratio inside of the Rubicon. This is the one that we're going to. The old one seems like it's twice the size. Let's see if they'll stand on their side, on their tips. Look how gigantic the old one is. It'll be interesting. See if it holds up or not. Alright, no luck with the files. Let's get in here with the die grinder a little bit. Maybe I'll smooth it out a little bit just so it's not so rough. I don't want to scar up the new pinion. Alright, let's start breaking down the differential. I'm going to flip it over on its side. I want to be extra careful with the wire for the locker so I don't want it to fall off and crush it. All right, the 410s are off. Here's a quick comparison between the 410 gears and the 5.38. The teeth on the 5.38 actually look like they have more meat on them. That's because they do. Alright, well, same as last time. My bearing puller seems to be a little short. I'm a little lost what to do here, so we're gonna improvise. At the end of the table. Alright, let's give this a go. Well, my bolts for the bearing puller end up being just ever so slightly too short. So, this morning I ran down to the hardware store and picked up a couple all threads. I thought about buying one and just cutting it in half, and it probably would have worked, but let's just keep them long. And of course, as soon as I got back home, after I thought I got the right size, just ever so slightly too big. Really? You're bent. Okay. We'll make this work. Alright, let's grab a couple 3/4 inch wrenches and give this a shot. Alright, everything's just about snug down. Alright, I'm worried I'm going to pull out the bearing and leave the race in its spot, so I'm going to try to tighten up the clamp a little bit more. Alright, here we go with another attempt. Add heat. Here we go again. I'm going to put some grooves in thanks to JR's Garage, and we're going to try to get a grip on it that way. Alright, running out of options here, so now I'm going to try the cutting method. Well, I feel like I'm getting pretty close. I started with the straight up and down cut, but then I realized I wasn't going to be able to get all the way to the end, and I'm still not quite there, but I'm hoping that if I relieve enough pressure, it'll come off. Alright, I wasn't recording, but I just heard it pop, so hopefully that's a good sound. I had to cut it a little bit more than I wanted to, but let's see what happens. Oh yeah, it's loose now. That was straight up and down, and then I added the angle one secondary because I didn't think it was going to get all the way up. Let's see if we can see the inside. A little bit. Didn't. So, got a little mark right there on the shim, and a little bit of a mark there. But overall, we did it. We have a shim and the locker magnet will come off. I'll put that aside for safekeeping for now. All right, here we go. Let's try to get the other side. All right, I'm not liking this at all. We're just gonna go straight to cutting it off. Let's get it cutting. I think this will be the quickest way. Heavy and greasy. There it goes. Now so I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with a file just a little bit, just to make sure there's no burrs here when we press the new one on. And we'll flip it over, and we'll do the same. Feels fine. All right, let's see if we can get that rear bearing out. Finally. All right, the bearing we're gonna use as a success. Yeah, baby. Let's go ahead and get these ABS sensors out of the way. I'm clipping my zip ties. Mine goes to my anti-rock right here. It follows it up and it goes over, and my plug is in the back. All right, that one's just connected. Wires free. Let's get that shaft out of the way. And we'll go to the other side and do the same thing. A piece of scrap metal So, see if I can get this angle good. I'm gonna go down to the end and feed it down the axle shaft and just give it a few good whacks. And
alrighty, we're getting towards the end of this video. If you like what you're seeing here, go ahead and give me a like and a subscribe.
your seals are here and here, so you can have gunk in your tubes and never have it hurt anything. But if you put your axle shafts in a rush and you ding them, or if you take your axle shafts out too many times, you can scar them, and that'll allow your oil to come out and your fluids to mix with the water that we all like to play in. So I'm just trying to get this a good cleaning. One last thing to do, we can use it on here as a test fit for our install without having to press it on. As always, keep your air tools happy.
If you have suggestions for other how-to videos, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'll try to get that added to my list.